flowers vanished from the daughter's grave. So the mother hid a camera, but what she discovered was shocking. Daniel and Claire Whitmore lived in Cornwall, England, with their 2 children. When Claire became pregnant with their 3rd child, the family was thrilled, but their joy turned to sorrow when their baby girl Lily passed away shortly after birth. They gave her a peaceful resting place marked with a white headstone and a small angel carving. They often visited, bringing flowers, soft toys, and letting their other children feel Lily was still part of the family. But then something strange began to happen. The flowers and toys they placed kept disappearing. Daniel first assumed it could be foxes or perhaps rules at the cemetery, but the same thing happened over and over. So Daniel decided to set up his camera inside a painted birdhouse and tucked it behind the grave. Then they waited. A week later, Daniel reviewed the footage. What he saw left him speechless. The flowers on their daughter's grave kept disappearing, so Daniel and Claire Whitmore finally hid a camera. What they saw would change everything. The couple lived quietly in Cornwall, England, raising their 2 children. When Claire became pregnant with their 3rd child, the entire family was filled with joy. They made plans, decorated a small room, and spoke often about the future. But their joy turned into heartbreak when the baby girl Lily died during childbirth. The grief was heavy, but they gave her a dignified burial. At the small countryside cemetery, they placed a white stone engraved with her name and an angel carving to watch over her. Every week they visited. They brought fresh flowers, small toys, and sometimes letters written by the children, so their little sister would never be forgotten. It became a family ritual. Even in death, Lily was still part of their lives. But then, something unsettling happened. On one visit, the toys were missing. At first, Daniel thought perhaps foxes or birds had carried them off. Another time, it was the flowers that were gone. He wondered if perhaps the cemetery had strict rules about what could be left at the graves. Yet when he asked, the caretaker told him no such rules existed. Still, every time they came, the same thing happened. Fresh flowers one day, gone the next. Toys left behind, vanished without a trace. It continued for weeks, until frustration finally gave way to suspicion. There were no cameras in the cemetery. Nobody seemed to know who could be taking the things. So Daniel decided to take matters into his own hands. He bought a small camera, painted it to look like a simple birdhouse, and placed it in the hedges behind Lily's grave. He made sure it was hidden from sight, then left the cemetery with Claire, both of them carrying heavy hearts. A week later, Daniel sat down in the living room with Claire by his side. He pressed play on the footage. For a long time, the video showed nothing, just the quiet graveyard, trees swaying in the wind, and the occasional bird passing by. Daniel was about to turn it off when a flicker of movement caught his eye. He leaned closer. Out of the shadows walked a group of children. Not adults, not teenagers. Children. They looked thin, their clothes worn and dirty. Some of them had shoes falling apart. Others walked barefoot over the damp grass. Daniel and Claire watched silently, their breath caught in their throats. A young boy knelt at Lily's grave. He picked up the flowers gently, almost carefully, as though he understood they meant something. A girl reached down and lifted one of the toys. None of them smiled. None of them laughed. Their faces were tired, almost sad, as though even the joy of holding a toy couldn't hide the emptiness in their lives. Claire's hand trembled. "They're just children," she whispered, her eyes filling with tears. Daniel paused the video, his anger fading into something else, an ache deep in his chest. These weren't vandals. They weren't thieves looking to cause harm. They were children with nowhere to go, scavenging for anything that might make their days a little bright. The toys weren't trophies. They were comfort. The flowers weren't trash. They were beauty in a life where beauty was scarce. Claire wiped her eyes, her voice barely a murmur. "They have nothing." Daniel nodded slowly, staring at the frozen image of the little boy clutching the flowers. For days, the couple couldn't stop thinking about them. Who were these children? Where did they sleep at night? How many more were out there? Calling the police didn't feel right. It wasn't a crime to want warmth, food, or hope. Punishment wasn't the answer. Something else was. The next week, Daniel and Claire returned to the cemetery, but this time, they didn't just bring flowers for Lily. They brought bags filled with sandwiches, fruit, and bottles of water. They carried bundles of warm clothing, scarves, and small blanket. They placed everything near Lily's grave, in the same spot where the toys had been. Daniel's voice was quiet as he arranged the things neatly. "If they come back," he said, "they'll see this." Claire touched the headstone and whispered to her daughter, "This is for you, Lily. In your name, we're going to help them." When they returned a few days later, the food and clothes were gone, but something else was waiting. Resting on the grave was a scrap of paper, folded neatly. Claire picked it up and unfolded it with trembling hands. Inside, written in small, uneven letters, were two simple words, "Thank you." She pressed it against her chest, tears rolling down her cheeks. "It's like she's smiling," Claire whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel put his arm around her, holding her close. From that day on, their visits changed. Each week, they brought fresh flowers for Lily, toys for the children, and bags filled with food and clothing. Sometimes, little notes were left behind. Other times, nothing at all. But Daniel and Claire knew the children had been there, and each time, their hearts felt lighter. They had found a way to honor their daughter, not just through grief, but through kindness. Over time, word spread quietly among the locals. A few neighbors began adding their own items to the collection. More food, more clothes, sometimes even small books and blankets. What began as an act of sorrow slowly turned into a circle of care. The memory of one lost child gave hope to many living ones. For Daniel and Claire, it didn't erase the pain of losing Lily. That grief would always remain. But something else grew alongside it: purpose. Every time they knelt by the grave and laid down gifts, they felt their daughter's spirit close, as though she had guided them to this act of love. The cemetery was no longer just a place of sadness. It became a place of quiet hope, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, compassion can take root. The children were no longer faceless shadows on a screen. They were real, and they mattered. And Daniel and Claire knew they would keep helping them, week after week, for as long as it was needed. Because sometimes the smallest gestures, flowers, toys, a loaf of bread, can carry the greatest meaning. And in giving, they discovered something no camera could ever capture: that love, even after loss, never truly disappears.